Welcome to Finance Leaders Retirement Insights, the broadcast where we sit down with thought leaders in the world of finance who reveal their unexpected wisdom on the issues impacting retirement.
Welcome to the Finance Leaders Podcast. This is the show where we highlight the stories, insights, and expertise of financial professionals that are making a lasting impact. Today, we're joined by Chris Galeski, a former professional golfer turned financial professional and also a partner at a leading RIA firm. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, Chris, every advisor has a different path into the industry. What originally led you into financial advisor and keeps you kind of passionate about it?
Yeah, look, my passion and drive in life for the majority of my childhood was to try to be the best golfer I possibly could because I wanted to play and compete and win on the PGA Tour. And I was a good player. I just wasn't good enough to make a full lifelong career out of it. But when I was in college, my dad was a senior level executive at Callaway Golf. And he was paid a lot in restricted stock units, stock options. And back in 1999, the Royal and Ancient Golf Club and the USGA came up with rules and restrictions on the limits for golf equipment. And the cause of that basically allowed for other golf club manufacturers to catch up to Callaway Golf faster, even though Callaway was spending more money on research and development than anybody else. And so I was sitting at the dinner table, it was like December of 99, and my dad said, hey, when Callaway stock gets to $40 a share, I'm gonna sell it. It was at like 39 and change. And, I just brushed it off and went about my business. And about 6 months later, Callaway stock had never gotten to $40 a share. It had come down to, 23. And financially, my parents are fine and they were able to get out of it. But I saw them lose a lot of money in value because of those stock options and the drop in price of the stock. And a lot of those options then expired worthless or for a lot less money. And so I thought about that. Like, my dad is an incredible person. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I always felt like I was going to be successful. But if he didn't know about ways to protect himself, maybe I should learn about it. So I changed my major to economics and finance in college because of that interaction. And I was just interested in how to find, save, and make money because I wanted to be successful and I wanted to make good decisions. And so you fast forward about 10 years, when I walked away from golf, I was sort of thought to myself, I'm like, well, what do I want to do with my life? And I knew I was really good at talking to people. One of the benefits of playing golf is you get to meet, random people that you've never met before, spend 5 or 6 hours with them out on the golf course and get to learn their stories. And so I love learning about people. I was interested in money and finance and I wanted to help people. And one of the nice things about golf is a lot of the people that you get introduced to during that journey are people in this industry because they tend to be sponsors of a lot of events and pro-ams. And so when I walked away from golf, I said, you know what, I'm gonna work in finance. And everybody laughed at me. It was August of 2009 when I walked away from golf. And you realize we are in the middle of a great financial recession, possibly a depression. You've never had a job in your life. And who's going to listen to you about money? And how are you going to get a job? Everybody you know is in sports or in golf. And I ignored it and moved from Texas to Los Angeles to be with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and was lucky enough to get an opportunity at Morgan Stanley and be part of their financial advisor training program. And that's one of the things that helped cause me to be successful and learn and grow. But I love everything about this business because money creates a lot of fear, anxiety, and if I can build confidence in the decisions that people are making so that way they can be happier and have better dinner table conversations, have better marriages, have better experience with their families, it's just so rewarding to be an advisor.
Yeah, no, that it's a great story. Going from professional golfer into being a financial advisor. And I think what you just mentioned, the financial business is not about money. And I think this is where I think advisors get it wrong and also people get it wrong, that it's not about money. I mean, nobody is really thinking about how can I go and collect a whole bunch of green paper and collect as much of it as I possibly can so that I can be happy. No, it's what money allows us to do, really money and kind of the financial number that everybody's kind of thinking that they're after is all about what it will allow you to do. It's the after, we're after what comes after us, being wise about the money and that we have.
Yeah,
So
look,
that's
money's a tool, and it's a tool to
yeah.
create experiences. I mean, a client told me once, like, money doesn't solve all problems, but it does help ease the struggle, right? And that really resonated with me.
Yeah. No, it just all money does is it's just a trend, like it holds value for a period of time because then you will get the value from what you get out of it. Like if you go on a vacation with kids, now you're transferring the value of money that you've made to building better relationship with your kids, spending time with them, building memories. That's really what people are after. So you've kind of mentioned there was a bit of a defining moment, but is there a more defining moment in your career that really shaped your approach on financial planning and wealth management today?
Yeah, look, I feel like I had a really good career for a number of years. I mean, I was trying to cut my teeth at Morgan Stanley through a very difficult time, 2009 to 2011. About August of 2011, we were sort of going into a double dip recession. Morgan Stanley, finally merged with Smith Barney. It was basically going to cut their financial advisor training program just because we weren't sure where the economy was going to go. Quantitative easing had just sort of barely started. And so I was talking with my team at Morgan Stanley, and one of the guys that had left Morgan Stanley went to Fidelity, and he said, "Chris, you gotta check out Fidelity. They've got more clients than they know what to do with. You're going to be able to help a lot of people, and you probably don't have to make another cold call again for your life." And I loved my life at Fidelity. I felt like Fidelity was a great place. When I was working at Morgan Stanley, if I said to somebody, I'm a financial advisor, I work at Morgan Stanley, people just turn around and walk away. But if I said I worked at Fidelity, everybody's like, "Oh, I've got an account at 401 at Fidelity. It's my 401k through my company." And just tons of people to talk to. And so that's where I built my confidence and my ability to give advice. But I woke up about 7 years into that career of Fidelity, and I was like, there's more to investing than just stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETF. People build their wealth a number of different ways, whether it's real estate, whether it's owning businesses, whether it's private investments. I want to find a place that's small enough that thinks differently, that works as a team, has a whole planning department, can invest in things outside stocks and bonds. And I got introduced to the people at Morton Wealth back in 2018, and it's just been a huge home run for me and just a marriage. And I feel completed because I'm not restricted by certain things that we can advise or help clients with. And I've gained knowledge and perspective in ways that I can help clients today more than I ever could before, when I was just basically allocating dollars into mutual funds and ETFs. Like, I didn't know how to run a business, but I do know more about how to run a business today and help those business owners or help people invest in real estate. And so I would say that just that whole career transition from Morgan Stanley to Fidelity, and then waking up and realizing, like, I live in Southern California. A lot of people have built their wealth outside of the stock market. I need to know more. And that transition to Morton is really the biggest defining moment in the success that I've had in my career.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. There's a couple of things that I want to pick up on. I really like what you mentioned that, before you went to Fidelity, you mentioned something to somebody and people were like, "Oh, never mind. The conversation is over," where now they had Fidelity. And that's kind of a principle of finding something when you're working with clients that you have in common with them, opens up the conversation and breaks the ice right away. And I think this is often where when I speak to advisors, where they're challenged a little bit, well, how do I open up a conversation with somebody? Always go and look for something that you have in common with them. And that really allows them to to open up, and because you already have a relationship from that perspective. Now, if I were to ask
on that relationship though, Daniel, I think it's really important because, like, that's the thing that I'm most passionate about. And I'm lucky through my golf career. I've had a lot of really cool life experiences. And so I can relate to people of all ages from the experiences that I've had. But I care more about the client experience than I do about the investments. And one thing that I know for sure, because I've been trying to study it for a long time, but we also had someone come in and speak to us from this program called Admired Leadership. And the 4 things that about the best relationships that you have, right? Their skills, passions, and hobbies. The people that are most important to them. Their special geography, like their favorite places to go and visit. and you know the life events that have shaped them. And so when you look at the best relationships that you have, you want to learn those 4 things about them, and you need to share those things about you to them and communicate with them along that journey. That way, clients, parents, spouses, friends, they know that you're along this journey with them as opposed to a transaction. And so I care a lot about that client experience, that relationship.
Now, we're back to what we mentioned. The financial business is all about relationships. And you know what, the way that people that are wealthy, that have money, they buy from people they know, like, and trust. And usually they kind of run in a network, right? Like they will go, and if you can build that relationship with them, you're able to really have an easier time. And again, finding something that you have in common really comes down to it. And there was a great advisor that when I was an advisor that I was studying, Lee Brower, and he had the 4 quadrants. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And he had this whole conversation that there are really 4 assets that we have. And he talked about this whole premise that he would ask the question of, hey, Chris, outside of financial assets, what other assets do you have? And people would start mentioning, well, there's my family, there's health. Well, you know what? Those are your core assets, right? Like those are the core things that are really important to you. Then outside of that, you have what we call experiential assets. And those are assets that is your education, your vocation, your kind of experience of things that you have learned. And so now we've got, 3 assets. We've got financial, we've got core, and we've got experiential. And he says there is another asset, and there are 2 components to it, and it's the contributory assets. And the first in contributory asset is your philanthropy, things that you give, not only money, but your time. And then the other asset that's in there is taxes. And it was always fascinating when I mentioned that, when I shared that with clients. What do you mean taxes is an asset? I said, well, hang on. If you structure your finances in the proper way, according to the tax code, you actually get to choose how much tax do you pay. And most people go, well, hold on, what do you mean choose? Well, again, it's how you go and structure it. So that opened up a whole conversation around taxes and things like that. But then I would ask a question that I learned from Lee, and he would say, Chris, let me ask you this. Now we talked about the 4 assets. If you could transfer only 3 of those 4 to your kids, and you had to let go of 1, which one would it be?
That's fascinating. I mean, it's a hard decision to make. So you've got core, you've got experience.
So the whole premise, there is a bit more of a story. You're kind of at a disadvantage where I give you the really short version of that, because we would go deep into it. Listen, most people say, hey, listen, I would let go of finances because they're not the important part. If I bring up my kids and they have core values, they know who they are, they're taking care of themselves, they're all set. If I help them to develop some type of vocation, or they have work and they really know what they're doing, that's great. If they're philanthropic and they're giving, those are the qualities I want my kids. The finances, I know if they have those 3 things, they will make it. I don't worry about that. And I said, so why do we in the financial industry only talk about money and we don't talk about all the other things?
That's powerful.
That was so powerful when I learned it from Lee, and when I talked to clients, because it helped them to shape the whole perspective. Because, and I like what you said, like, hey, there's more to investing than stocks and bonds and all of that stuff, right? It goes on that same premise. Then there was another question that I would go and ask, and I would say, hey, Chris, let's just say that tomorrow morning you wake up and everything that you have ever purchased, your house, your car, your 401k, whatever investments you have, your real estate portfolio, it's all sitting in a big pile of cash, right? Like it's all liquid. Yeah. Would you go back and repurchase and redo everything that you have done, or would you make some different decisions?
Well, the studies always say no. Like there's that premise, like let's say you're at the store and you see your favorite movie. This is back when DVDs existed, right? So let's just pretend we can go back in time. You're at the store and you see your favorite movie, and it's a movie you've always wanted you wanted to own, and you're standing in line and somebody says, hey, if I gave you that $20, would you buy that movie? And the answer is yes. And then they said, okay, well, if I gave you that $20 and you had the choice to either buy that movie or anything else that you want, would you still buy that movie? And like 90% of people say, no, I'd use the money for something else. As you were sharing that story, I've got 2 young girls. And the only thing that I really care about as a parent is them growing up to become an adult and not caring what other people think. Having the confidence to live life the way that they want to and make the decisions that make them happy without the fear and the anxiety of like, what are people going to think about me? And to your point, like I would give up those financial assets just to know that they have that power because they're going to be more successful in life.
Yeah. And that all comes down to what are the values. And again, that's where really the core assets, come in. So let me ask you, if I ask one of your clients, what do you stand for? Not just as an advisor, but as a person, what do you think that your clients would say?
I would like to think that they say that they feel like they've got a partner. I've got a number of clients that are older than me, and they basically feel like I'm their parent when it comes to making financial decisions. But it's mainly from the sense that I'm giving them confidence and reassurance that the decisions they're making today aren't messing up the outcomes that they want long term, and that they know that I'm along this journey with them. I think that's probably what most of them would say and feel, that there's not a number, but we're part of this journey of life. We're making decisions the best we possibly can with the intention to have the most experiences and the most happiness possible. Like that's my goal, is to show up for them in that way.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you really say is that you're the type of an advisor that is not the advisor that sits across the table with your clients. You're the one that sits besides them and saying like, hey, let's resolve the problem across the table. The problem is we are in a current situation. We want, we've got some goals. We're not just quite sure how we're going to get there. The problem is, hey, how do we build a plan that we can get to where we want to go?
Right. And it's not my job to put my values on their money, right? It's my job to understand their values, their intentions, and then work the problem and help them. Regardless of what I would do for myself personally. I do share that from time to time. Like, hey, if I was in your shoes, like this is probably the decision that I would make, but based on what you're telling me, I think you should do this.
Yeah. Well, what you're mentioning, like, I speak to a lot of advisors and they always say, hey, we put clients first. But what does that actually look like for you in your practice? And you kind of alluded to that a little bit.
Yeah, look, we've got to put ourselves in their shoes and ask the questions and have the conversations to really understand what's their intention and what's the result that they want to get out of. And look, I go back to those 4 things that you should know about all of the people that are most important to you. And if I understand their skills, passions, and hobbies, the people that are most important to them, where their special geography is and the things that they would like to do that they never have, and then also the life events that have shaped them, I can better help them and I can show up for them. And so to me, I look at it from that lens. And so that's how I show up in terms of putting clients first. The investments are secondary.
Yeah. You've just described 3 out of the 4 assets that we were talking about, right? The core, the experiential, and the contributory. So that's awesome. You worked with many different clients. What do you think separates those that really build a meaningful wealth from those that just kind of accumulate money?
You have to be willing to take calculated risk in order to build wealth. Keeping wealth is a different decision that you have to make. But when you're building wealth, you have to make calculated decisions. And, if you've got a good investment, allocating a small amount of your money to it, if it really does well, like your overall wealth probably isn't going to increase as much as maybe you would have liked. And so the building wealth phase is a little bit different. Most people are that build like tremendous amount of wealth. It comes through equity or ownership in a business or real estate. Very few people create tremendous wealth by having a W-2 job and just paycheck by paycheck, but there definitely are that do. And so I think building wealth is a little bit different than protecting and generating income long term. And so I just look at it in different phases and what is it somebody's trying to accomplish? Because it's rarely both, right? It's rarely I want as much as I possibly can and no income and no losses, because like there's no golden unicorn, right? And so I try to look at it from that lens and better understand like where that client's coming from. But we help serve clients through a number of different phases in life and perspectives in terms of their goals with accumulating money, generating income, protecting it, saving money on taxes, whatever that may be. I'm not so sure that that quite answers your question, but the best clients for us have a healthy dose of skepticism, right? They know that they want to participate in the growth assets, but they know that like that's not the only way. Like I need to open my eyes to things outside of stocks, like real estate, private lending, other types of investments that can help generate the income. Because look, people make life decisions based off of the income you have coming in. If I just have an asset that goes up in value, I'm not likely to go and take that trip to pay for my kids, college education or my grandkids or help somebody buy a house. Like I'm going to make those decisions based off the income that I have coming in. So we kind of have to solve that problem first to then figure out how much money's left over that we can assign towards growth to really accumulate and build and grow from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, and you mentioned that, whatever phase somebody's in is going to depend on really what the goals are and how you're going to go and proceed.
Right.
So, what are some of the personal financial values that you kind of live by, and how do they shape the way that you really guide your clients?
The personal values that I live by that shape and guide my clients. Look, we're all in this life together, right? And I think many of us have gone through life and made decisions, financial or personal, and we've sat back and wondered, like, hey, was that the right decision to make? Did I know all of the things that I was supposed to know in order to have confidence that that was the right decision, or whether or not I should have done something else? So what I love about Morton is we've got 55 plus employees that are all working on behalf of each client. Like me as an advisor, those clients aren't just mine. Like they have access to every single person inside this organization to help make those decisions. So if there's someone that has a specialty or an expertise inside these walls that I can leverage, they will come and join meetings and conversations and help give that advice. And so to me, the value that I really drive through is that partnership and knowing that we have an entire team with tons of experience and a huge network to help clients solve problems. And it's not just me and my opinion, but they can look at it and say, you know what, I better understand the decisions that I'm making today, how that's going to impact me long term. And I have more confidence to move forward with this because I have an entire team around me that's able to help.
Now, you're talking about leveraging the resources that you have. I have the saying that I tell people, hey, listen, it's 50% of a watermelon is always more than 100% of a grape.
Yeah.
And it's not just a cute saying. It just says that you need to understand that not one person is going to be able to go and do everything on your own, and you got to go and be open-minded to understanding that working with a team will always give you more results. So this is a question, and it might make you think a little bit. If you had to define financial success in one sentence, what would it be?
I unfortunately read a book recently, Die with Zero. I think it was Peter Attia. And it talks about, there are different phases in your life where there's only that one moment in time that you're actually going to do that thing. And so when I look back at my life, like my 20s, I didn't go to Europe and travel in hostels and backpack around. I'm 45 today. I'm not about to do that tomorrow because I've already stayed in a Marriott and done it, right? And so to me, it's not necessarily just about the money. It's about those life experiences that you wish that you've had and that you want to make, and getting the most value out of your money while you're alive. Like most people say, oh, I want my kids to be better off when I'm gone. So I want to save and sacrifice so that way they inherit more money. Well, your kids might be 70 or 75 years old when something happens to you and they get that wealth. Like, did that wealth actually help make their life easier and provide a better life and experience for their kids and your grandkids? The answer may be yes, maybe no. And so it's really looking at wealth and saying, hey, what decisions can I make today that don't impact the quality of life that I want to have, but also improve the organizations and the people that are most important to me, now, as opposed to 20, 30 years down the road.
Yeah, you bring a good point, and I think this is the challenge as parents. And before the show, we kind of shared. I'm kind of a first generation immigrant here in Canada. We kind of came from under communism, came to Canada with nothing and everything that I have gone and built. for my family, started from scratch. There are some great way of really building, and again, building character, because I'm looking at, my kids. They haven't had to go through a lot of the tough times that we've had to go through and all of that. And I'm thinking, is that actually helping my kids, or is it somehow hindering them? Because again, building that character and all that. And I think this is kind of always that, challenge from that. But what you've mentioned, it's all about the experiences that you're having. And I think, when we're when there's the wealth transfer, the advice that I would give to a lot of clients when I was working with them, telling them like, you're alive right now, your kids are alive. Start thinking about how you can actually do more things with them now than giving them this big nest egg, when you pass away. Because what if you live, longer than your parents, and then your kids will get this windfall when they're like in their, 70s or whatever. It might not mean anything to them, because yeah, maybe at that point you should really leave it to the grandkids. And again, this is the whole idea of start looking at the different ways of doing it. And I know there's a lot more people that are looking at it that way, going like, hey, you know what, my kids, I give them the means and they're able to take care of themselves. Maybe we need to look at, hey, how do we go and leave, funds to the next generation to help them out? Because things are a lot tougher, I think, from the perspective of, for the younger generation, especially with the economy and things that have been happening now.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, look, you talk about grit and perseverance and determination because of all of the challenges that you've had to face, and those are real. As parents, we want our kids to have a little bit easier of a life and still maybe have those failures, but maybe not the same way that we did. But like, look, I live in Southern California. This wealth gap is real, and it's challenging for people to become a homeowner, to save for their family, to provide the life experiences. If you're 25 years old, homeownership's a lot more difficult today than maybe it was, 30, 40 years ago. And I'm not saying the boomers didn't have it tough. They definitely did. But I definitely feel for, the 20-year-olds and my nieces and nephews that are teenagers, and even my daughters that are 4 and 2. And I wonder sometimes, it's like, man, what's life going to be like for them here? I mean, I'm like 7th generation Californian. Like, this is home, on my mom's side. So I think about that a lot.
Yeah. Well, you guide a lot of a lot of people, your clients, through major financial decision. What's one of the toughest conversations that you've kind of had to have with a client, and how did you navigate it?
Look, I think one of the hardest conversations that we have with clients, period, is giving them the confidence to make spending decisions today. Because look, there are things that we don't know that could happen. And people either have an abundance mindset towards money or a scarcity mindset towards money. And the people that have an abundance mindset towards money, like, it's easier to kind of pull them back a little bit. The people that have a scarcity mindset towards money, their life experiences shape that. And it's very difficult to get them over the hump to be like, no, it's okay to spend that $50,000 and take your entire family on a trip and do that. Like, that's okay. I know you're worried about long-term care. I know you're worried about all these things, but like, it's okay to do that. That's a lot more challenging. And so, from that perspective, we just really try to, meet clients where they're at, understand the mindset and the hurdles that they're facing. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is around people that have amassed a lot of money, and they're worried about their kids being prudent with that money once they're gone. And, a lot of trusts say, hey, when I'm gone, my kids can have access to money when they're 35, 40, 45. And it's like, they're arbitrary ages. Like, whoever came up with this, I mean, I think I know why, but like, they're arbitrary. If you've amassed a large amount of money and you're worried about your kids being good stewards of your legacy long-term and impacting future generations, instead of worrying about like what age is appropriate for them to, be able to have access to some of that money, you should do a couple of things. You should either give them some money today to see what decisions they make with it, because they might make the right ones, the ones that have the values that you have, or have them be co-trustee of that money with, another trustee or somebody else, so that way they can learn about the investing, the taxes, all of that different stuff for 5 to 10 years. So that way, when they take it over and they can make decisions on their own, they actually understand it a little bit better. Like, let's get rid of these arbitrary ages. Hey, when you're 35, you can have a third of it. Like, I just think that that's challenging.
Yeah, there was actually, I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie Ultimate Gift. Uh,
No.
it's a great movie and it talks all about that. It's about a grandfather that passed away and he wants to leave his wealth to his grandchildren, well, to his children and to grandchildren. And it's about a grandson that that has there, and he has him kind of going through these different challenges because it's what we've talked about. It's the life experiences that somebody needs to amass because his grandson was pretty well spoiled because he had this trust fund and it was like anytime he needed money it was always there and it was like a never ending well because there was a lot of money. The grandfather made money in oil and in Texas and all that. But it was quite fascinating how he kind of had the grandson go through these challenges and learning about life. What does it mean to work? What does it mean to give? And it's an excellent movie. There was kind of a version even done for there was the ultimate gift and there was the ultimate life. It's a great movie. I gave that video to a lot of my clients just to start to open up because what you've mentioned is, we talked about and I appreciate you bringing it up. We talked about that the financial business is about the relationships. Really, the financial business is about the mindset that people have around money. I know when I grew up, I had a very negative relationship around money, not only because I came under communism, but also because of what happened with my parents. My parents divorced when I was 9 years old. And my whole life, I was blaming everything that happened to me and about money and finances because that's what I heard. There were a lot of things that happened. And helping people just to start to realize that the mindset that they have around money and being in there are these two worlds and they're really real. What you mentioned, I call it the red world, the scarcity world, and then you have the world of abundance, which is the blue world. And there are different rules in each of these worlds, and we can see when people suddenly are thrust into the blue world but they're using the rules of the red world, like people that win the lottery, very quickly, they move back to the red world. And how do you go from being broke to being broker? Like you've got a lot of people that win millions of dollars and then they're like in debt by millions of dollars. And it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And a lot of people that have won the lottery like regret winning the lottery. And you're like, unfortunately, speaking to a lot of clients, I don't know if you get this too, that lottery was part of their retirement plan. I'm like, no, it's not a retirement plan. That's
Yeah.
just wishful thinking.
Yeah,
So
it happens with athletes, lottery winners. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, we talk a lot here at Morton about having the right mindset paired with the right strategy helps you become a better investor. Because without those two components, like if you have the right mindset and the wrong strategy, like that's not a recipe for success, and
yeah,
vice versa. If you have the right strategy but the wrong mindset, you're going to run into challenges. And the biggest pitfall people make, period, around risk and mindset is how they react to things. And studies show it all the time. The average returns of investments are this, but the actual return that most investors seek is much, much lower. And that's because how they respond or react or sort of buy into the long-term plan and vision. And so having the mindset is so important.
yeah, and having the mindset and really building everything on on financial principles or life principles.
Yeah.
Like when you look at life, and I'm going to use a very simple example of losing weight. I was just listening, and they were saying that there is 30 million Americans that have a type 2 diabetes issue health wise. It's a diet thing. It's a food thing. Everybody knows that, but people still don't do anything with that. And that really has to do that. Hey, it's based on principles, right? Like you eat the right food. Losing weight is all about calories in, calories out. Like the principle of that, just like gravity. Listen, I know that 100% of the time, not 99.99, 100% of the time, if I go on a top building and I leap off of it, I'm not going to sprout wings. I'm not going to fly. I'm going to go down 100% of the time. The same way, that's kind of a principle of gravity. Same way, there are some principles around finances, and I think when we're talking about the world of scarcity and the world of abundance, people don't realize that when it comes to money, there are certain principles. And I feel me growing up in the world of scarcity, I was taught principles for the scarcity world to actually keep me in the scarcity world, as opposed to starting to learn, going like, hang on. And, perfect example of that was if somebody in the scarcity world, if they're kind of told, advice around money, it would be like, hey, you know what, save, 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 don't borrow, don't take risk. Where when you go to the world of abundance, the wealthy world, it's the opposite. Not that they're not saving, but they understand that I've got money and I'm going to use that money to make babies. I want to make more money with the money that I already have instead of like putting it in your mattress kind of a thing. And, in the scarcity world, they
Yeah,
understand.
most of the people with that abundance mindset, they live in a way of like, hey, I'm going to make the decisions today where the person I am 5 years from now is going to be proud of the person I am today.
That's a beautiful illustration of that because so often people in the scarcity world, they just want to stay where they are. They don't realize they're dreaming of the better life, but the decisions they're making on a daily basis is what they have done in the past, and they keep on repeating that same pattern, kind of the definition of insanity, right? Try,
Well,
you
so is
know,
golf, right? Do the same thing over and over and expect different results. Yeah.
exactly. So what's one of the, we're talking about principles. What's one financial principle or lesson you wish that, everybody really understood sooner?
It's not just about saving, like you actually have to invest. We're in a world today where it's more apparent that the dollars that you own are going to be able to buy less goods and services in the future because of inflation and prices and the insurmountable debt that not only the US but the globe has. And there's only a couple ways really out of this. The government can raise taxes, which gives people less money to spend, so that way they can pay off the debt, or they can let inflation run a little bit and devalue your currency and then, pay off that debt with, devalued dollars down the road. And so, it's not just about like that 50-30-20 saving rule, right? Where, half of your money's on essential expenses, a third of it is on, your enjoyment, and then save 20% and you're going to be okay. You have to invest that 20%, and you need to invest sooner. That's one thing that I wish that I would have done earlier in my life. And it's one thing that I see prevents people from really getting to where they want or those milestones if they're younger and still in the accumulation phase. It's that fear around losing, and when it comes to investing, that's the hard part.
Yeah, I think one thing you just kind of mentioned that reminds me a little bit of this, that, people living in the scarcity world, they look at everything like, oh, I don't want to make the wrong decision. What is the right decision to make? And what I see people kind of in the abundance thinking, they're like, it's a decision. It's not right or wrong decision. I need to make a decision because as soon as you make a decision, now you will know if it was one that was kind of helping you. I have the saying, in life is either working for you or life is working on you until it can start working for you. So there
But
is no lose, right?
right, but it's partly like a cultural issue, right? And so I read this book called Brave New Work, right? And the US is all about efficiency, optimization, right? Industrial revolution. And we lived through basically a stoplight culture where we have all of these process and procedures in place that tell you when to stop, when to go, when to slow down. And, just with the purpose of creating efficiency, but you lose that ability to be creative. And so we actually, as a society, need to live more in like a roundabout culture, right? If you live in a roundabout culture, it's continuous participatory change. And so going through life, making decisions, understanding that I'm constantly moving and then changing my next decision based off of what just happened and continuing to evolve, we're going to be better. And so if we take that mindset as it relates to living our lives, making financial decisions, and running a business, we're going to be a lot better off. Now, you still need rules and procedures to live by if you've never done it before. But if you've done it a million times, like that's just an operating manual, and you should have the freedom to make adjustments and change, going forward if you can find a better way.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And again, it's just being open that there is more than one way to do something.
Yeah.
It's not right or wrong decision. No, literally there could be a million different decisions you can make.
Yeah.
And it's, if you just look at it as a decision. When I was doing a bit of a research, you once said that if they don't fly first class, their kids will. I mean, it's kind of a funny, you're laughing at, it's a funny, but it's a real struggle. How do you help people kind of balance the responsibility that, helps with actually enjoying their wealth?
It goes back to some clients that don't necessarily, fall on the far end of the spectrum of having a scarcity mindset, right? But it's the ones that sat there and said, "Hey, Chris, like I had to sacrifice my entire life to build this nest egg that I have here today. And if something were to happen to me tomorrow, my kids are going to inherit, a really decent amount of money, and they didn't have to go through the struggles that I've had to do." And so I laugh and I say, well, that's fine. But like, what you're telling me is that if you don't fly first class, your kids will. So you want to take that vacation, you want those diamond earrings, you want to, do all of these things. You have the money and the ability to do that and create those experiences for yourselves or with your kids or for those organizations that you care about. And if you continue down this path by not going on that vacation, not buying that thing that you want, not, doing the things that, you said to me that will make you happy, your kids will. And you might be okay with that, and that's fine. Just know that if you don't fly first class, they will. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Again, wealth isn't just about money. It's about really living well, and I think this is where helping clients to really understand that was one of the reasons why I kind of got out of the industry, because for me, it was always about save, 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 save. And unfortunately, this is what a lot of the in the financial industry, a lot of the companies, it's like, how do we get the client's money and how do we keep it for as long as that we can? That's kind of the message that I got. And I'm like, hold on, no, I'm here to help the client to kind of go and have, what I would call a wealthy life or a better life. But what I was being taught is how to go and sell a product. And then it was like, how do I help the company, whoever's holding the money, to keep that money for as long as they can? And that kind of translated into, no, you know what? I don't really want to go and do that. That's why I exited out of it, and I started looking at, how do we go and create a little bit more? You kind of mentioned that. I believe that, I believe that there was a creator that created us. There is God, that exists, and He created us, and He gave us some of His creation into us, and we have been built for creativity. Unfortunately, from very young age, I believe as kids we were very creative, but then we were told, no, Daniel, don't do this, don't do that. Why did you do this? And we start to kind of conform, and then we kind of pop out as kind of
that stoplight culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenging thing, Daniel. I mean, as I think about that, I don't know. It's so hard for people to kind of get over that hurdle and have confidence with spending or doing stuff. But like, not trying to pick on one of my former employers. I think Fidelity is a great institution, but when I was there, I was bonused on net flows, right? So if I had positive money versus withdrawals for that month, I made more money as an advisor. And that's not the way that we work here at Wharton. And nothing makes me happier than getting a phone call from somebody and saying, hey, you know what? I need some money because I want to do this. Can I do that? Not, is that okay? Of course it's okay. But, can I do that? Nothing makes me happier than seeing people take money to create those experiences and get more enjoyment. So, yeah.
I mean, at the end of it, it feels like everybody's rushing towards death. It's like, no, listen, you got to enjoy the life,
Yeah,
right? Like enjoy where you're at, because it's the experiences. There was a great book. I can't remember the name of it, but the person, I think they were in can't remember the place where they were in a hospital where people were just basically before death, and he went around and started asking questions regarding what are your regrets, and nobody said that, saving more money. It was always the memories or the relationships, spending more time with family. That's, when somebody's close to death, that's what they regret they didn't do more of. And I appreciate what you're mentioning, helping your clients to kind of saying like, hey, you know what, we've got to keep this in check, that it's not just about accumulating that money. You still need to go and live your life right now, because that at the end, that's what you're gonna remember when you're kind of on that deathbed, and that's what you're gonna be remembered by, right?
Yeah.
Not because of there was this pile of money that you have left for your family.
But yeah, I mean, look, my mom passed away at 67 last October, and she always wanted to visit the Eiffel Tower. Never got a chance to. And so like, that's a defining moment that's actually changed my viewpoint and how I give people advice and really kind of push them out there. Like, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And if you have the ability to and the means, and it doesn't impact, you long term and create too much stress, you should take the time and go have those experiences today, because yeah, everybody that's in that end of stage life, it's less around the money and more around the relationships, the time, the experience. Time is the one thing that we all have in common that we don't have enough of.
There's another distinction between the scarcity world and the world of abundance that, in scarcity world, and I've done that many times where, I spend a lot of time chasing after saving money, like driving across the town to save, a couple of cents on gas.
Yeah.
Where when you look at how people that are living by the rules of abundance or wealthy people, they spend a lot of money buying back their time. And again, it's complete opposite and not really understanding how that is. So
Oh, I drive my mother-in-law nuts. I mean, she definitely has that scarcity mindset towards money, and she's done a great job, and she's been a great saver and investor. But she will drive across town to save 10 cents a gallon, whereas I will not. I mean, it's a convenience thing. If I can save 20 minutes and pay an extra $5, like no big deal to me.
And often what they don't realize, they're probably spending more time, not only time, but probably gas, because
Yeah.
you don't think about the gas you're spending driving across to save the gas. The net gain is really not that much. But again, it's about emotional. We talked about mindset, right? So I mean, for many people, as we're talking about, money is very emotional.
Mhm.
You know, from all the experiences that you have, what's something that you've kind of learned about the psychology of wealth from working with clients?
You know, it's not just about clients. I mean, look, been fortunate in life to be around a lot of very successful people at a very young age. The most successful people I've ever met in terms of like creating wealth, they all have that abundance mindset. Every single one of them looks at every day as an opportunity. Like today could be the day that starts me on the path towards what I actually want in life and what I can achieve. And they look at the day as the opportunity and they make those actions and those decisions because they're looking at it as an opportunity as opposed to, oh, the world's against me. That's never going to happen because of these things. Well, that was yesterday, not today. And to me, like that's the biggest differentiator that I've seen in my life as it relates to success in anything, not just accumulating wealth. Like today could be the best day of your entire life. And if you wake up that day, if you wake up with that mindset, it really could be. But if you wake up with a different mindset, there's no chance today is the best day of your life.
No, I feel like every day I wake up, I already won the lottery because through the experiences where I've been, you know what? I'm able to get up and walk and be able to do things. So, that drives a really great point. Now, what are some of the financial lessons that it's not just talked about enough? What are some of the big impacts or the big things that you kind of see that, hey, I wish that more people kind of knew about? And again, we talked about all different things. Is there some more kind of ideas or things that you can share?
I think that unfortunately, our world in the investment advice world, it tells people like the best path is to buy low cost index funds, own the S&P 500, like the Warren Buffett rule. Like if you can't do it if you can't be me, just own the S&P 500 and you'll be fine. Like that's just not great advice. It's it's good advice because it teaches people to save and to invest and to get used to investing. But there's so many different ways to be able to make money, to grow wealth, to generate income. And it's not just through stocks and bonds. And so people should be open to the other avenues that are available to them, whether it's investing in real estate, certain private lending, even potentially owning some gold. I mean, I know that, some advisors really don't like gold because it doesn't generate cash flow. It's hard to understand the valuation. But if you go back 100 years ago, an ounce of gold was a couple $100. It could buy you a really nice, expensive Italian suit. Today, gold's about $2,800 an ounce. It can still, guess what, buy you a really nice, expensive Italian suit. Like, you've got to be looking at things in terms of buckets, right? Do I have money that's set aside to cover my short-term needs and help me sleep at night in case of emergency? Anything I need to spend within the next couple of years? How much income do I need to generate to be able to live the life that I want to live? That's how much money goes in the income bucket. Then what's left over can be assigned towards growth. And I think if people structured things that way, in addition to maybe writing down their values and their hopes around money to share with other people that are important to them, I think if more people did those two things and approached it that way, they would have more confidence. They would feel happier, and they would worry a lot less about the numbers on the screen that come across with the noise of the markets.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And again, as we kind of going through this, life's not just about money, right? So if you could go back and give yourself, your younger self a piece of financial advice, not just about money, but about life, what would it be?
So when I was in college, my grandfather gave me a 1980 280D diesel Mercedes that he had had since 1980. So this is 1998. It's a diesel Mercedes that, you needed to turn the ignition and wait a couple minutes for that
Blow
light to come
sparks,
off,
yeah.
and then you can start it, right? But I had already had an Explorer, that was on leaded gas, right? So I could just start it and go.
Yeah.
I ended up selling that Mercedes, and I got $3,000, and I wasted it on food and dates and probably beer. I mean, I was in college. That was 1998. I could have, I don't know, instead of buying an iPod, I could have bought Apple stock. I wish my parents said, "Hey, Chris, like, don't waste this money. Actually start investing and, make some different decisions with that." Because that one decision, like, I've always had an abundance mindset towards money. So I've never cared if I didn't have money, or if I did, because I just figured tomorrow I would make more. But I feel like, looking back, if somebody was to have helped me during that pivotal moment, I might have accumulated more money today than I have. Probably not. I mean, let's be honest. I was trying to play golf professionally, so I probably would have had more money just to maybe extend that journey longer. But, who knows?
Yeah. And again, I tend to look at it this way. And again, it's kind of a bit of a loaded question because, yeah, hindsight is everything. But, often I tell people, I wouldn't go and change anything about my life because that's what it created me who I am right now. And no point of contemplating what I could change because I can't. So there is no point. So that's great.
I have one of the best lives you could ever have. I mean, I wake up happy. I get to do what I want for a living. I get to help others. And I get to create a great life and experiences for my kids. And, it wouldn't be there without those life experiences that kind of brought me here. And so I agree with that statement, Dan.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what's one belief about money, wealth, or business that you hope that your clients could pass on to their children?
It's not necessarily my beliefs. I think, again, it's not about me putting my values around somebody else's money. I think we've all had different life experiences that have shaped us, and people have accumulated wealth or gained success in their own different, unique way. I think that more people should get together and be open to talking about money, not only with their family, but with friends. Like, money is such a taboo topic, and it shouldn't be. I mean, if I go over to your house, Daniel, for dinner, like, I now have your address. I can go on Zillow and I can guesstimate the value of your home. Like, it's more transparent today than it ever was before. But because people take that mindset around, like, oh, money's a very personal thing and I don't want to really talk about it, it prevents them from being able to make better decisions, to learn from others, to come together. I mean, in life, we learn through our mistakes. Wouldn't it be better if we got to talk to others that have had success or failures, and we could learn from them together as a group? And so I would like for people to talk about it more. That's me personally. But as it relates to values, I think people should share their values and their principles around money more with their family and friends. So that way it can help that abundance versus scarcity, and bring more people into the middle, and that will create more success for them long term.
Yeah, for sure. And you bring a great point from the perspective of I remember being at appointments, and it sometimes felt like I heard more about what's happening in their bedroom than what's happening in their checkbook. And it was like, the people are so much more freer to share more personal, intimate things. But when it comes to money, it's kind of like, oh, that's a taboo. No, we're not going to talk about it. And it's kind of like, it's okay. And part of that is, I know for me, growing up, that's what I've heard. You don't share that with people. You keep whatever you're making in money. You don't share because people are going to be envious of you if you go make money. And I'm like, Yeah, but again, we're back to what I mentioned before. Like, 50% of a watermelon is always more than 100% of a grape. And I think you brought a great point. It's not about boasting about saying where am I at, but it's learning from others and learning and being more open to it. Because I think, especially when we're talking about transferring some of that knowledge to the kids, I think there is a, I'm going to put it, I think there is a hope because I think the younger generation, they're a lot more open about these things. I think part of it kind of comes back from, listen, like my parents were born right after the Second World War, and there was kind of like even here in US, it was like, you loose lips sink ships, and this permeated that whole society. And I know I speak to a lot of individuals that maybe their grandparents were veterans or their fathers were in the Second World War. And they came back changed where they don't talked about things because there were like secrets and things that you couldn't go and talk about. That has brought kind of this where people were not sharing. So I think there is a hope from the perspective of this newer generation. They're a lot more open and okay with going and sharing those things than maybe we were and our parents or grandparents were. So I think we're kind of moving in a better direction on that.
I agree with you. This creator economy, and these younger generations, I mean, just look at the podcast, the YouTube channels, the stuff on Instagram. I mean, it's all over the place. I think people are more open to sharing, which is a real positive thing. I mean, I go back to that one comment that I made about I hope that my girls wake up one day with the confidence to make the decisions and not care about what other people think. Most of the reasons why people don't want to share and talk about their successes, their failures, or where they're at financially, is because they care what the other person's going to think, good or bad. And that creates a roadblock from us being able to have really good conversations and help more people become successful. And look, we're in a world today where you can find and create success so much easier than you could before. And our ability to communicate and talk about that will only help.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about there with, with your two girls, and let me tell you, you're going to blink and they're going to be in their 20s. So enjoy them where they are right now. Is when, when we entered into high school, we started to think about and really stop living our life because we started thinking about peer pressure and what does this person think? And a lot of kids don't realize that they start to not live about their own identity, who they are. They started going like, well, what am I going to wear? And they start wearing or thinking how they think that they're being perceived. And they essentially giving up their own identity. And then when we grow up, we we never return back to our original identity, to our true authentic selves. So that's sometimes, challenging. So
I've never heard truer words, but it is so right in the sense that, oh, this person's wearing this, so I have to do that too, even though your favorite color's in, something different. Like, just be yourself and be confident.
It starts innocently, but then it starts becoming that. And again, we have the cliche of saying keeping up with the Joneses and all of that stuff. But again, those are all those things. But I think, the younger generation, they're kind of beyond that.
Yeah,
So,
one of my partners, he talks about, hey, do I make this financial decision for my memory bank or my financial bank, right?
I love that. That's it. I'm going to borrow that. I love that because if
Yeah.
most people don't realize that if they look at their life every single day and they could see a movie, they just realize they're literally playing a rerun of the last 20, 30, 40 years. They think that they're, doing different things, but when you distill it, the success somebody has in life, or not necessarily success, the life that somebody has right now is because all of the small little, what often seem insignificant things they do on a daily basis, they do them over and over and over again, is giving them the result. And the good news is that, hey, you can go and change it. You can go and reset what you're doing, but you need to become aware of it, that that's what you're doing. And unfortunately, I think there is a saying, it kind of says, yeah, people die at the age of 25, but they don't get buried until 75. And it's kind of a bit of a stark and dark way of looking at things. But when I look at a lot of people around, I do see that. And I was part of that. Like, again, you kind of get into this grind and you keep on doing the same things over and over again, getting frustrated. I think it was Warren Buffett that said this. And again, I love this quote. He said, people are so busy at their work making money that they, no, hold on. How did he say it? people are so busy working, they never have time to make money.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I'm like going, wow, that's a very deep statement, because people are just in the grind and they don't kind of stand back, smell the roses, and kind of reflect on life, that the prize is not, the prize is not the end of life. The journey is the prize. And it's like, enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I mean, look, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, they even say like envy is the root of all evil or something along those lines, right? Caring, being envious and jealous of others is the biggest, issue for most people, as opposed to just enjoying themselves. Like I made what I thought was a very stupid financial decision a year ago. I had a car that was completely paid off. It didn't have very many miles on it. I don't have a long commute. And I woke up and I really wanted a Bronco. I mean, I've always wanted a 1967 Ford Bronco, but you can't have that as a daily driver. And Ford came out with a new version of the Bronco that looks like the older one. And I'm sitting there going, man, I really want this, but my car is paid off. And I ended up spending the $50,000 and getting a new Bronco, thinking I was making a selfish decision for myself, because when I walked away from golf, like I was broke. I had $671 to my name. I had to drive from Texas to California, make a $300 car payment. I mean, I had no money. And so the last 15, 16 years, I've been so focused on saving and growing and becoming financially free. I couldn't justify making a purchase like this, but I did it anyways. Every day I come home, my girls want to take the roof off of it, play music and dance in the car, and they love it. And it's created so many more experiences and so much more fun. It's just that memory bank thing, it really resonates with me.
Yeah. No, and I definitely see you've now built memories with something, and it's the happiness and joy. Chris, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your journey and your insights. It's clear that your approach to wealth is more just about the numbers. It's really about helping people, live the life on their own terms. Now, before we wrap up, for anyone that wants to connect or learn more about your work, and what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to mortonwealth.com. We've got a fabulous website that's a lot of fun, that even kind of talks about all of our different personalities here in the office and interesting things about us. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Chris Galeski. And so those are a couple of ways that people can reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Chris, thanks again for being here. It's been a pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Finance Leaders Podcast for more conversations with industry leaders. Until next time, take care and keep building your financial future on solid principles. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Finance Leaders Retirement Insights.